Although the train had long since disappeared beyond the jagged peaks of the mountains, the woman stayed fixed on the platform while everyone else had departed for home. She had no family awaiting her, no money for another ticket, and no place to lay her head, only a battered suitcase at her side and a letter that had extinguished the last spark of hope in her chest. In a voice so quiet it was almost lost to the wind, she whispered that there was nowhere left for her to go. At that moment, a little girl walking beside her father noticed the tears in the woman's eyes and stopped in her tracks. She tugged at her father's sleeve and asked why that lady looked as though she was waiting for someone who would never arrive. The rancher turned his gaze across the wooden planks, and instead of passing by, he walked directly toward her. What the child said next would grant the lonely woman a feeling she had not experienced in years, the profound sense of belonging. Stay until the very end, because this tale is not merely about finding a new dwelling. It is about discovering that the family you need often finds you when you have completely abandoned the search. If you are moved by emotional Wild West stories that celebrate kindness, hope, and second opportunities, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and remain with us for more unforgettable narratives. The final whistle of the evening train echoed across Willow Creek Station as black smoke dissolved into an orange sky, and travelers hurried toward their waiting wagons while porters hoisted trunks across the platform. Families disappeared down the dusty road toward homes where warm meals and familiar faces awaited. Yet one woman remained exactly where she had been standing for nearly an hour. Her name was Anna Miller, and beside her rested a worn brown suitcase with a broken latch, containing 2 dresses, a tattered Bible, and a bundle of letters tied with faded blue thread, representing everything she had left in the world. She had arrived in Willow Creek believing she was embarking toward a new life, after a distant cousin had promised her work at a boarding house with steady wages and a small room of her own, prompting her to sell nearly all her possessions to afford the journey west. Upon arrival, however, she learned the boarding house had closed months earlier. Her cousin had moved away, and the only address she possessed led to an empty building, leaving her to spend the afternoon seeking help from shopkeepers who shook their heads and an innkeeper who demanded money she could not provide. Even the station master offered only the painful counsel that she should take the next train east, but she could not, because there was no east left for her after losing her parents, her fiancé, and the small farm that had once belonged to her family, taken after her father's debts overwhelmed them, while the man she had intended to marry broke their engagement upon learning there would be no inheritance, and disappointment followed disappointment until she had stopped expecting any shred of kindness. She finally sat on the edge of a wooden bench, staring at the empty tracks with a folded letter in her lap, which she had read so many times that the paper had nearly torn along the creases, containing only a few cold sentences that told her the family who had once promised help could not afford the trouble of taking her in. Anna pressed the letter against her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered that she did not know what she was supposed to do now, while just a few yards away, rancher Thomas Reed was preparing to leave the station with his 8-year-old daughter Lily, having been widowed for nearly 4 years, and dedicating his entire life to raising the cheerful, curious little girl he adored, who noticed things adults often ignored. As they walked toward their wagon, Lily suddenly stopped, prompting Thomas to turn and ask what was wrong, and she pointed toward Anna, following his gaze to see the lonely woman sitting beneath the station lamp, trying to hide her tears from passers-by, whispering that she looked sad and perhaps needed someone. Thomas glanced at the fading sky, knowing he had a long ride ahead and darkness would soon cover the road. While helping strangers in frontier towns could bring complications he did not fully understand. Yet Lily continued watching Anna until finally he sighed, walked over, and removed his hat respectfully before asking if she was waiting for another train. Anna looked up and shook her head, her voice barely audible as she said no. And when he asked if she was waiting for someone, she gazed toward the empty road and replied that she was. But Thomas did not press further, simply noticing the worn condition of her coat and the suitcase beside her, before Lily stepped forward with a warm smile and invited her to come home with them for supper. Anna stared at the little girl in surprise, having heard no such warmth all day, and whispered that she did not want to be a burden, but Lily frowned as though the idea was strange, insisting that she could not be a burden just because she was hungry. Thomas looked at his daughter, then back at Anna, something about the simple innocence of those words touching him deeply, and he extended his hand, saying gently that his daughter had made the invitation and he would be honored if she accepted it. Anna hesitated for a long moment, then finally placed her hand in his, not knowing where the wagon would take her or what Thomas wanted, only understanding that for the first time that day, someone had looked at her as though she mattered. And as the three of them left the station beneath the fading sunset, she had no idea that the road ahead would lead to far more than one warm meal, but rather toward a life she had stopped believing was possible. Thomas's ranch was quiet when they arrived, but Lily immediately changed that by showing Anna the flower garden, the chickens, and the small room where she could stay. And during supper, Anna tried to eat slowly, afraid that accepting too much kindness would make her a burden. Yet Lily noticed and pushed the bread basket toward her, saying she did not have to earn dinner there, making Thomas smile as he realized his daughter had already decided that Anna belonged. Over the next few days, Anna helped around the ranch, repairing clothes, cooking, and caring for the animals. And though Thomas never pressured her to talk about her past, one afternoon the truth emerged when a man from town arrived with a warning that Anna's former fiancé was searching for her, claiming she had stolen money from his family. But Thomas refused to send her away based on an accusation, instead promising her one thing, that she would not face this alone. And Anna finally understood that the ranch was becoming more than shelter. It was becoming the first place in years where she felt truly safe. The accusation against Anna was finally exposed when the station clerk produced records proving her former fiancé had taken the money himself and blamed her to avoid prison. And Thomas stood beside her as the truth was revealed while Lily proudly held her hand. After which Anna told Thomas she could leave now that her name was clear, but he gently shook his head, saying she did not have to leave just because the trouble was over, and he looked toward Lily, who smiled and whispered that they had already saved her a place. A month later, Anna became part of the ranch without ever being asked to prove she belonged, teaching Lily to read, helping Thomas manage the farmhouse, and bringing warmth back to a home that had been quiet for years, having arrived at the station believing she had reached the end of her story, only to discover that sometimes losing everything is not the end, but the moment life finally makes room for something better. The moral of this story is to never underestimate the power of one-kind invitation, because a person who feels forgotten may only need one open door to remember their worth. And if this tale touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and visit us for more emotional Wild West stories about kindness, courage, and second chances.